Hello and welcome back to the Listening to Your Gut podcast. I am super excited to introduce you to Amy Natalie today. I was just sharing with Amy that we came across each other, or I came across her rather, through listening to a podcast. I wish I could remember what podcast it was, but the second I heard her, I was like, oh my God, I have to connect with this human. I have to connect with his soul because there's so much that I relate to in her story, and I know you will too, as the listener and viewer. So before we get into that, welcome, Amy. Welcome to the podcast.
Yay, I'm so happy to be here. And I really believe that the universe brings people together in divine timing. And I know for myself on my journey that when I needed it the most, I found the right podcast, the right book, the right resources, the right people. And so to have you in my world is truly a gift. And now I'm super grateful to be here with you, to be connecting with your listeners, and to be co creating in this space together. So thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. Yes. You're like you said, it truly is divine timing. We receive the people, the places, the things, the situations when we need them. And I mean, to that end of the token, I really needed to develop more of a feminine presence in my life when I found you. And so I think it would be great for us to start there and to talk about we hear people say, oh, I'm very masculine dominant, or, I need to access more of my feminine side. Can we, I love the way that you describe masculine versus feminine. Can we define that for the women listening? Because I think sometimes we use those, but we don't really know what we're saying when we say that.
Yeah, this is such a deep body of work. And so starting with making sure we're on the same page with the language that we're using is really important. So to start off, I know that the words masculine and feminine can seem like they are associated with specific genders, masculine being associated with men, feminine being associated with females. But the terms that we're using here, masculine and feminine, are relating to energy. They're not relating to certain genders. So these are ancient principles of duality that have existed since the beginning of time and that have been talked about through ancient traditions in the Buddhist traditions, in the yogic traditions, in the tantric traditions, and even in the Chinese traditions. We see this duality of the yin and the yang, the light and the dark, the masculine, the feminine. Other words that you can use is alpha for masculine, omega for feminine, if you want to take kind of like the confusion out of it. So, yeah, to give the understanding of what these different energies represent. The masculine energy is what our culture is most driven by or has been most driven by for the last few centuries. And it is dominated by logic, by structure, it's logical thinking, linear thinking. And it is more of that focused, productive energy. And we do need the masculine energy. So it's important. However, when we get too stuck in that, in the thinking, in the analyzing, and we get disconnected from our feminine essence, that's where there becomes an imbalance. So then the feminine energy can be described as intuitive. It's your feelings instead of thinking. Like the masculine is thinking, the feminine is feeling. It is the connection that you have to the earth, connection that you have to your cycle. The feminine is very cyclical, it's not linear. And I like to say that the feminine is where like the flow, the ease, and the magic in life exists. And within the feminine, we also find that pleasure. So that enjoyment, that pleasure of actually enjoying the moment, enjoying the journey. That's what exists in the feminine. And the feminine lives in the body and the masculine lives in the mind.
Yeah, I love that because to that point, like we oftentimes as women don't really know our bodies, our full self. um, because we do, many of us live in that masculine quite often, most of the time, until we're, enlightened and really brought to more understanding that, like you said, the difference between the two and how we can access both. And so I love that. I love that this provides, like, when you think about accessing more feminine, more of the feminine side of you, while also still having some masculine, there as well. I love that that gives us the opportunity to explore ourselves and to understand ourselves even better. It's one of those things that, again, we're not brought up, most of us are not brought up understanding that, right? It's not taught in school. It's something that we truly really need to access as an adult to start to understand ourselves better. So I love the way that you shared that. Thank you.
My pleasure.
That's
Yeah,
incredible.
this concept, I mean, the reason why I wrote a book on it, I have a
Yeah.
podcast about it, is because it really has made such a huge impact in my own life. And it's also served so many women in my community to help to come back home to themselves, to help to reconnect with themselves, to come back to a place of nourishment, aliveness, energy, and vitality. Because when we're in masculine overdrive, a lot of the symptoms end up like you feel depleted, you feel depressed, you feel disconnected, you feel burnt out. Like that's when we go too far into that doing mode. Now, we want to also note that it is possible to go too far into the feminine, which is called the feminine overflow, where we're kind of in that floaty space. We feel ungrounded. We have a lot of ideas, but we don't follow through with them. And so it's kind of like this pendulum that happens sometimes. Women who are super far in their masculine, they're like, shit, I don't want to go all the way in my feminine because like my life's going to be chaotic. I'm not going to be successful. I'm not going to be productive. Nothing's going to get done. And you don't have to swing all the way to the other side. However, there are times where women who have been in their masculine for so long, giving to everyone else, working hard, overachieving, trying to prove their worth, like just in that doing mode, sometimes their body speaks to them and they get to that place of burnout and they can't keep going the way that they're going. And they have to take that break from work. They have to take a break from working out. They have to take a step back and really swing into that feminine overflow to replenish themselves. And then it's about coming back into that center point where you find your own inner harmony with these two elements.
Yeah, I love that. Well, and to that, I think it would be incredible for you to share, if you wouldn't mind, kind of how you tapped into this. You accessed, finding more of harmony between the two, the masculine and the feminine for yourself, because I think it's always, helpful to share our stories because then we can see some of ourselves in other people, right? And we can connect on a deeper level and to realize, oh my gosh, she's just like me and that she's also gone through some of the same things I have. So I would love for you to share, take us back to when you kind of first started to realize you needed more of this harmony between the two for yourself.
Mhm. Yeah, I'd love to take you there because I know that so many women are still existing in that space. And so for me, it was in my mid 20s and I like to share that everything on the outside of my life looked picture perfect. Like people wouldn't have known how bad I was struggling. But internally, I had been struggling with chronic depression for years, with anxiety. I had a lot of negative self-talk. I had a lot of negative body image. I had digestive issues. I had hormone imbalances. I was emotionally eating. I was stuck in my emotions, but I couldn't actually move past them and I didn't know how to fully feel them. And I had a lot of shame around my sexuality. And at the time, I was married and I was living in a beautiful home. I was running a nutrition business at the time. And it just felt like something was missing. I felt unfulfilled. I felt unsatisfied. And that dissatisfaction, I eventually got really tired of it. And this pretending to be living this life that I thought would make me happy. I checked all the boxes, like I had external success, but I wasn't actually happy and I was struggling. So that led me on my spiritual path. That led me to committing to a daily devotional practice of sitting down in meditation, journaling, going to workshops, listening to podcasts, reading self help books. Like I really immersed myself in that. And what I found when I first learned about masculine and feminine energy and learned more about how to trust my intuition and who I was on an authentic level was I realized that the life that I had created was all dominated by the mind. It was all dominated by what I thought I should do and trying to fit this perfect mold that society had led me to believe unconsciously would be the picture perfect success. And so I realized that there was an imbalance. I was in my masculine energy in my marriage. I was in my masculine energy in my business. I was in my masculine energy in my workouts. I was in my masculine energy with the way that I was eating. Everything was calculated, measured, focused on the ego, the materialism, and I didn't even know that. Like I didn't know that I was doing that. And so once I realized that and I learned like, oh, I'm disconnected from my body, from my emotions, from my intuition, from who I really am authentically, that really drew me into this work and to really learn and understand how do I connect with my feminine energy. And so many women want to know how to do that, and they will take a masculine approach of trying to figure out how do I connect with my feminine energy. They're like, what do I have to do? And what do I have to learn? And what are all the steps I need to take? And that's okay. Like to start there, that's totally fine. That's a great entry point. I'd rather you be there and be like, I want to figure this thing out. And then eventually it becomes a way of being. It becomes who you are. You soften, you open your heart, you start to experience that intuitive wisdom. You have that magic, you have that flow, that magnetism. And it's not that everything's perfect all of the time, right? But when those waves and when those challenges come up, you know how to ride those waves of your emotion. You know how to work with the resistance because you're so in touch with yourself on this deep level.
Yeah, I love that. And I mean, you do such a great job on social media. The presence that you share with us, in the public is like exactly what I hope the women who are listening can develop for themselves. When you share on social media, you are so real, raw, and authentic. And I love when you share times where you're like, I feel myself going into more of a masculine state, and that's making me a little bit more uncomfortable. So I'm bringing in some more feminine features and aspects to my day so that I can have more of that harmony between the two. I love I love that about you because to your point, like you just said a moment ago, it is an ebb and a flow. You're not always going to be able to find, and I don't like to use balance as much, and I know that's why you use harmony a lot, and I love that. I've told you that, but it is this, you kind of rock back and forth between the pendulum, and it's not a one way all to the right or to the left. It's going back and forth between them. So I appreciate you sharing that yet again, and again, just the way that you show up in this world is just so beautiful. It's what draws me, and I imagine so many other women to you because of the way you just unapologetically show that, to us, and allow us to feel that way. Allow us to feel, hey, today I am feeling a lot more masculine. So if I'm feeling uncomfortable in being too masculine, what are some aspects I can pull into my day to make me feel a little bit more grounded into my body, right? And I love that about you. And I mean, gosh, you're a women's embodiment coach. You've written this incredible book that I've had the pleasure of reading all the way through, and your podcast is just phenomenal. I can't wait every week until there's a new episode. You are just such like the wisdom in you that comes out of you. And you're not even, in your like in the latter stages of your life, right?
Mhm.
But you embody so much of this wisdom that I know attracts myself and many other women, and I'm certain that the women listening and watching are going to feel the same way. And your story that you shared is one of many reasons why I connected with you, because I feel that there's so many parts of my story that you also have in connection, to your story matches mine in many ways. And the
Mhm.
women listening, I know will feel that too, going through like, you know, dysmorphia with our bodies, and the rigidity of eating. I mean, there are countless women that have gone through that, myself included, and I know you as well. And it's I don't want to say it makes it easier, but it's just when people reveal that, it's like, okay, me too. Like there's so many of that so many things like that we've closeted because we're
Mm.
shameful of that, or we don't feel that other people have gone through that. And when you hear other people share that, it's like, wow, there's so many more of us out there that have gone through this, and how much more powerful we are now because we know how to remove ourselves from that. And it's not shame, it's learning about ourselves so that we can learn to honor ourselves and not have that rigidity come back up, so I guess all that to say thank you for sharing your story, because I know it resonated with me and still does, and I know there are many women who are going to resonate with your story.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And I think that that brings us into an important point of like, there are so many women awakening right now. And that's what I started to see as I was going on my feminine awakening journey. I was starting to see how many women were craving this. And I started to create communities, in person communities, online communities for women who were discovering, like, oh, the way that I've been living, isolating myself, comparing myself to others, having these kind of even toxic relationships, toxic friendships, like that's not working for me anymore. And I want spaces where I can be authentic, where I can be in this exploration of who I am and where I don't have to wear all these masks and pretend everything's all okay all of the time, like where I can practice being vulnerable and exploring these deeper connections. And we're living in the time of the age of the Aquarius, which is called the feminine rising. And this is astrologically, we've gone through a huge shift after 2000 plus years in the age of the Piscean age. And some of the attributes of the age of Aquarius is community, right? It's collaboration, it's connection. And the Piscean age had a lot more, it's like technological advances. It's more of the top down approach where you've got that kind of person at the top. And then there's like this kind of leadership style where it's power over people. And the feminine is about rising together, coming together in circle. And this wisdom is so ancient. Like this is not new. It's coming back to the surface and it's a remembrance. So if you're listening to this and you're like, oh my God, this feels like an exhale for my soul. Like I know this is true. Like there's a part of you that just knows this. Like you're being called to this for a reason. It's because there's a huge shift that's happening in the collective consciousness. And if we look at, in general, what's happening with consciousness, consciousness is rising. Like it's expanding. So many people are awakening. And if you even think back, like I think back to my grandmother and my mother, like they didn't have the accessibility, the freedom, the access to this information, right? They were stuck in the old paradigm, and we are birthing a new paradigm right now. And so many women are coming back into their power. So many women are discovering their gifts and not willing to be in a role that doesn't suit them, not willing to be in relationships that are unhealthy or unfulfilling, not willing to rely on someone else financially, not willing to work a job that is soul sucking for them. Like things are massively shifting. And the last piece that I'll share is that so many of us are being drawn to reconnect with nature. And that's because nature really helps our nervous system to get out of all of that hustle and bustle and that high paced fight or flight mode that we're in. Nature helps to reground us and recenter us and bring us back home into our bodies, into our essence. And like, I feel such a pull that so many women are feeling right now of wanting to be in nature more. And if you're feeling that, like, it's real, it's happening. We are being called back home in that way.
I love that. And you mentioned all of this in the book. And I just have to say that when I read about us going into the Aquarian age, I was like, it was like an aha moment for me because I myself was feeling pulled in this direction. And it's like that just made everything click even more because I already felt the natural inclination to connect more to my feminine. And when I heard that in the book, it was just it all made so much more sense. And so I appreciate you sharing that and calling us back to remind us that yeah, this is, if you're feeling it, this is the time. And if you haven't yet, it's not that it's not going to happen. It's I truly believe, and I'm sure you do too, that it's in natural timing that you're going to connect to this and start to develop and adapt things in the way that you conduct yourself and the way that you just be here in your natural presence, that you'll start to pick up things that are really calling to you. Like you said, potentially maybe going more into nature, right? I just feel like it's this empowerment of women, right? Like we are being called to become more empowered ourselves in our bodies, but just in the way that we stand up for ourselves, right? Which is incredible because to your point, my mom and my grandmother's generations, no, that was not how they were. But how incredible that we here and now can start to change that and really step into who we are, who we're meant to be. I love
Mm,
that. I love it.
yeah. Yeah, there's a quote that's coming up that I don't think I included in my book, but I think it's such a beautiful description of the evolution that's happening. And it's a description of when women are in their feminine leadership, when they're in their power. And it goes like this. It's living with a strong spine and soft heart.
Mhm.
So it's like we can be in that softness and our vulnerability without being weak. And we can have that strong spine and have those boundaries and make progress and, bring our dreams into fruition. But it
Yeah.
doesn't have to come from that forcing and that pushing. It doesn't have to come from being inauthentic. It's like you can be with that open heart and you
Uh,
can be raw and real and be respected for the gifts that you have to offer as the feminine, and
uh,
call them your feminine superpowers, right? Your vulnerability, your sensuality, your intuition, your bringing beauty into the world, like your creativity. These are all feminine superpowers that are so important that we're being called to reconnect with and to really own, to really claim these gifts that we have to bring to the world.
Definitely. And so that leads us into, I would love for you to share more about what it means to embody, to be embodied versus being disembodied. Like what are some signs that we might be disembodied? I would love for you to unpack that for the women that are listening and watching.
Yeah, there's so many different descriptions of what it means to be embodied. So I'll share a few of my favorites, and there's different lenses that we can look at this work through. So embodiment, which is the final feminine code that I share in the book, it kind of brings all of it together. And embodiment is a way of being. Who are you being? It is walking your talk. It's living in alignment with your truth. It's feeling and sensing, living from your body, having the emotions, having the pleasure, feeling your intuition, right? So most women are living unconsciously from their neck up. All of the energy throughout their day, they're spinning in anxiety, they're spinning in the to-dos and the overwhelm and the I should do this and I have to get to this next thing, and feeling like they're behind or feeling like they're not enough, and just like so much mental chatter, right? And learning how to relate to your thoughts and your emotions differently, and bringing that into the body, learning how to feel your emotions rather than analyze your emotions or overthink your emotions. That's embodiment. Embodiment is also the way that I love to teach women embodiment and support them is teaching them how to get into intuitive movement, into feminine movement. And you could call it dance if you want. That's like the most similar thing that if someone's never done embodiment work, you can think of it as dancing. And it's really about connecting to the movement and the sensation. And one of the practices that I guide my clients through is working with different feminine archetypes and different energies through movement practices. So we use the music, we use expression like sound, like shaking, stomping, dancing, moving sensually, touching like your body. Like there's so many different ways where we awaken your true innate essence and really release any parts of yourself that you felt shame around, whether it is your body, your sexuality, your personality, like wherever that shame has been living, we use these practices to somatically release them from your body. So yeah, embodiment is a whole world, it's a whole body of work. And I feel like the most accessible practice that most people know about is yoga. You know, yoga is the practice of connecting your creating that mind body connection. However, in yoga there can still be a masculine essence to it. So some yoga classes include like really focusing on your breath, feeling the breath, right? It focuses on connecting to the sensations in your body. Other yoga classes, you can go to like a hot sculpt yoga class and it's all about the poses and about how it looks, and there's this rigidness to it.
Mhm.
So there's different styles of yoga. Like the most feminine style of yoga, I would say, is yin yoga. Yin yoga is like really being in that surrendered, receptive state. There's not a lot of effort or doing, right? And then the most masculine of yoga styles, I would say, is like Bikram yoga, where it's like the same postures every single time. It's pretty rigid, it's really intense, and you've got this, duality of those different energies. So yoga is a great practice, and it's like, what is the way of being while we're doing that practice? Another one is breath work. Breath work is a really beautiful practice. In yoga, we call it pranayama. And there are some really intense breath work practices, and there are some really soothing practices that help us to calm our nervous systems, right?
Mhm.
Neither good or bad, right or wrong. It's just, what are you needing? What is your body needing? And that's embodiment right there, is listening to the body,
Yeah.
letting the body guide you, learning how to let the body tell you what it needs rather than living from the mind and the mind dictating how you go throughout your day and the decisions that you make.
I love that. And thank you for sharing that because I think a lot of women, when we hear that word embodied, we get overwhelmed and we're like, I need to do all the things and I need to do them all right now. Right. But to your point, listen to your body, right? Maybe it is just starting with breath work. Maybe the sensations and feeling your body, maybe you're not ready for that, and that's okay, right? It's like listen to your body so that you know truly what the first right step is for you, and from there it naturally unfolds. I truly believe that. I mean, you've shared that. I feel that, in the practices that I've allowed myself to unfold, and when I'm comfortable to, explore something new. So I think it's just, again, we live in this society, in this culture that's like, if I want to be embodied, it's got to happen right now, right? But that's not reality. We have to give our bodies time to allow those things to unfold. And so again, thank you for sharing so many different avenues and ways that we can go about that, and ultimately, like you said, it comes back to listen to your body. What is your
Mhm.
body telling you that it needs first, and go there, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I love what you just shared. And I think it's such a great reminder that we're looking at redefining your relationship with your body. If you've been living from your mind your entire life as you know it, then it's like, let's look at this as a journey because it's a relationship. If you've been so disconnected from your body and you're like, I don't even know how to feel the things that you're asking me to feel, I don't even know what that means. It's like, okay, it's not going to happen overnight. This is a new relationship that you're cultivating. You're building trust. You're learning the cues of your body. Not going to happen overnight, and that's okay.
Right, right. Well, and another piece to your practice I know that you have for yourself, but it's also in the book, is developing a devotion or deepening a devotion. So I would love for us to talk a little bit about that too, because I know that just like becoming more embodied, your devotion can look different. Each and every person's way that they go about that is different. So can we talk a little bit about what is a devotion and what are some of the different ways that might look for someone?
Hmm. Yeah, this is really the foundation that I start with all of my clients. This is the foundation of where we start in the book as well when we get into the feminine codes. So this principle was such an important shift for me, and I'll talk about the difference between discipline and devotion. So discipline is the way that many of us have been taught. If you want to be successful, you got to be disciplined, whether that's going to the gym, whether that's eating healthy, whether that's, accomplishing things in your business or in your career, you have to be disciplined. And that approach, even the energy behind discipline is like, if you don't do it right, then you messed up, you're going to get in trouble. And it comes from this energy of should. I have to, I should do this. Now, for some people, discipline works. I do have a core element of discipline that works really well for me. However, when that is the way that I'm approaching my spiritual journey, that's the way that I'm approaching my growth, it actually is counterproductive. So, alternatively, I like to feel into the energy of devotion. Devotion comes from the heart and the soul. Devotion is like, I am devoted to being the best version of myself. I'm devoted to feeling good. I'm devoted to feeling alive. I'm devoted to creating an impact and making a difference in the world. That devotion is what drives you. And so we can see when we show up to daily practices, whether it's meditation or journaling or yoga or breath work, or when we show up to even a podcast like this, it's like, can I show up from my heart from a place of devotion?
Mm,
And devotion also entails that self-love and self-compassion, right? When we're operating from the shoulds and the discipline, the inner critic is often in the driver's seat.
yeah,
Devotion is like, okay, I'm going to show up and I'm going to do my best. And I know that I also, at sometimes it's not going to be perfect, and that's okay. Can I give myself grace and compassion if I skip a day or if I don't do it perfectly? And can I get curious about that? Okay, what didn't work? What worked? Like, where can I learn and where can I show up in even deeper devotion next time? What would that look like?
yeah.
So different. So that's where we start is creating a daily practice of showing up to connect with yourself, connect with your soul, because it's in that quiet space, in that space of listening, where we really get to know who we are without the labels, without the roles that we play, without the person we think we should be in that quiet space. That's where we can do that deep listening and connect to our authentic truth, and then also where we can hear our intuition, which is always guiding us, and having that daily practice of creating space for that is you're telling yourself and you're telling the universe, like, I'm ready to up level and I'm worthy of creating this space and time for myself. I'm done just like giving my time and energy to everything and everyone. Like, I'm devoting this time to myself.
I love that. And it truly is the devotion, creating a devotion for yourself is part of that embodiment process. It allows you to access more of yourself and to understand yourself better. And I love how in the book you share this, and just I mean you've always shared this on your platforms too, is that it can look, you just said it yourself, it can look different each day, right? Like maybe today you do a gratitude practice and you do some journaling, and tomorrow maybe you wake up and you don't feel like that's the path for you. Maybe it's just doing some deep breathing and listening to some meditation or calming music, right? And allowing yourself to be okay with that. But even furthermore, allowing yourself to explore different things to see what do you like and what don't you like. Maybe when you're in different phases of your cycle, you gravitate towards different devotions, right? Different practices. So I love how just again, what you share, what you embody yourself, and what the book has to offer as well is it's reminding us that there is no right or wrong way, because then again we get into more of this mind of like masculine, it's got to be a certain way, and truly just opening yourself up to again the exploration of what's out there and what feels good to you.
Yes, it's so beautiful. Yeah, and the imagery that I get, and I have this on the front of my book, is like a rose and like a flower that's like blossoming and that's
Gorgeous.
opening, right? It's like this journey. It's not this like arrow like
Yeah.
operation where you're like, I got to get to that goal. And when I get there, then I've like accomplished it. It's like, no, it's this deepening and this blossoming and getting to know yourself and meeting yourself in these new ways, and that's the beauty in it, right? It's so different to how we've been operating, and yeah, it really is such a powerful journey.
Yeah, it's definitely empowering. And I mean, as we start to wrap things up, I would love for you to share, if you wouldn't mind. I know you've worked with so many women. Um, I'm just curious, what have been some of the things that you've noticed over the years in working with women on this type of work that comes up quite often? What are some of the struggles that you see many women dealing with? And what are some of the what are some of the things, the pieces of advice that you could offer women that are listening right now that are like, yes, I connect with that struggle. Like, what can I start to do for myself to start to understand myself more and embody more of who I am?
Mm, yeah, such a powerful question, and it's so multidimensional. Like my coaching program is called
Yeah.
Multidimensional
Yep.
Woman because every woman is so different, and because this work literally infuses into every aspect of your life. So I could go so many places with this answer. I think what feels most alive right now, just based on a few client sessions that I've had recently, is the conversation around emotional mastery. And really, as young women or as young girls, we're often taught by society that it's not safe to feel our emotions, that it's weak, that we're too dramatic, that we're too much, that it's inappropriate or it's wrong to feel our emotions. And so many of us shut down our emotions and we distract ourselves from feeling our emotions. We feel numb, we feel disconnected from them, or we feel stuck in our emotions and we feel overly emotional. And I work with women in both spectrums. I work with so many women who have gone the traditional route to work with their mental health with therapy, and I think therapy is really amazing and it's a really great entry point. However, when we're trying to approach emotions from our mind, we're missing a big piece of the puzzle because emotions are energy
Yeah.
and they live in the body and they get stuck in the body when we don't express them, when we don't feel them. And so, learning how to feel your emotions, how to express your emotions, how to process your emotions in a healthy way, learning how to create that space and to be with your emotions when they come up. And then also how to communicate with your partner, with your friends vulnerably, right? This isn't about like projecting onto them or spewing all this, all of your problems onto them. They're not your therapist, but it's like, how can you share what your needs and your desires are from a really heartfelt place, not from trying to like control them or manipulate the
Yeah.
circumstances, right? So for me, emotional empowerment for women is so important because as feminine beings, we are more emotional. We have I would say like a wider emotional range because we go through so many different seasons throughout our menstrual cycle. And it is one of our greatest gifts. However, it is something that I feel like holds so many women back
Yeah.
because all of our decisions are made both from our emotions, like they're emotional based decisions. There's so much research on this when you look at marketing and advertising. We know that men are more logical in their buying and women are more emotional. We know that women make decisions from their emotions. So if your emotions are controlling your life,
Yeah.
and you are not empowered, meaning you are not in right relationship with your emotions, then you're going to keep spiraling, you're going to keep spinning, you're going to keep feeling stuck in those disempowered states, in that state of shame, of anxiety, of hopelessness. Like that's where you're going to stay. And so there is so much power in learning how to feel your emotions, how to move your emotions through your body. And there's so many different layers of how we can do that. But I really want to let women know it is possible. I mean, I lived with chronic anxiety and depression. I was on medication for over 10 years, and there's nothing wrong with being on antidepressants. And also at the same time, like, there's freedom beyond that. You can work with your emotions in a different way. That's not just the logical, analytical talk about it. It's actually processing and transmuting and alchemizing your emotions in a way that really serves you. So that's something that I want to share, whether you're someone who
Yeah.
feels disconnected from your emotions or you feel like you're always really emotional, like there's a way to relate to your emotions in a different way that will completely change your life.
Gosh, I love that. That was incredible. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Because I mean, when you said that, I was like, you're speaking to me too. Because I mean, I think most of us probably feel that way, right? Like so many of us probably grew up feeling that way. It was just the way society was, in the generation that we grew up in, that it was kind of shove everything down and just, go through the motions, so to speak, right? So that's hugely like powerful. I so appreciate you sharing that because I know I can take a lesson or two from that, and as well as the women listening. So thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. And one final piece there that I want to tie it all together is we're not just feeling emotions just to feel emotions. What's really amazing with this work is the more that you allow yourself to feel, even if it's the discomfort and the emotions that feel like not so pleasant, when we expand our capacity to feel, we expand our relationship with life, the way that we can feel life. It also allows us to feel more pleasure. It brings us back online instead of just going on autopilot and going through the motions, and then eventually you wake up one day and you're like, what the heck have I been doing?
Yeah.
Right? This is where aliveness comes from. This is where intimacy with life in your relationships comes from, is your ability to feel. And that's really what I want to drive home is like, yes, it's about getting out of like the emotional stuckness, but it's so much more than that.
Yeah, it's living life to the fullest, right?
Hmm.
And being able to experience all of life's pleasures. God,
Mm.
I love that. That's incredible. Thank you for sharing that. As we start to wrap things up, I would love for you to share how women can connect with you because, I mean, first of all, if you are not in Amy's sphere in her world, you need to be. She is absolutely incredible. Amy, I just absolutely adore you. Please share how women can connect with you, everything.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you again for having me.
Yeah.
So, first place that you can connect with me is through the Feminine Frequency podcast. We have over 300 episodes, incredible guests. Like, that is a body of work that is just thriving. So, please go check out the Feminine Frequency podcast. I am also starting a really exciting new membership for my listeners and for my community. It is called the Feminine Portal, and it is a space to activate your feminine energy, to connect in sisterhood, to be in community. Like, that is where you get to be if you want more intimate access to me. And then you can find me on Instagram at Amy Natalie Co. And if you'd like to get started today with a tool to really support you, then you can download, I have a free morning ritual. So you can download that. It's a guided practice to help you to connect with your feminine power as you start your day. So we'll make sure to give Kelly all the links for all the things.
Yep.
And
And
yeah,
the
it's
book.
oh, and the
Oh,
book. The
book.
book.
Yes.
Buy the book.
Yes.
You can find
Ah,
The Feminine Way on Amazon. I'm actually going to be recording the audiobook in a couple of weeks. It's not
ooh,
ready yet, but it will be out this year.
ooh.
So that's really exciting. But yeah, you can get the book paperback or you can get the PDF digital on Amazon. Yeah.
The book is also a must. Let me just say. I mean, it's gorgeous.
So
She's
pretty.
gorgeous. Everything that's in it is just, I mean, you will learn even more from Amy herself, but the book is just phenomenal in every way. So thank you. Thank you
Thanks,
so much
babe.
for
Yeah. Thank you for reading. Thank you for receiving. Yeah.
absolutely.